the first question that would be great to ask is, for everyone that is here, like, is there a desire to write a memoir, or have we tried to write memoirs? Or so, like, what basically, where are you, or where have you been on that process so far? If you're free to answer in no order necessarily.
Yeah, well, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay. Well, I usually go last when people ask questions like that, but I'll go first since nobody else is speaking. I wrote a memoir in 2009, and now I've got a lot of new stuff that I'd really like to share about a cancer recovery journey. So that's where I'm.
Nice. Okay. Cancer recovery, great. And Sybil, is there any chance you have had any desire to write, or have you started to write, or done anything in that direction?
I have a desire to write, but I haven't done anything yet.
Okay, that's a good place to start.
Okay.
And no prior effort would be required for this, for sure not. So that's okay. That's great. And the last one, I think we have Frank up as well. Frank, is there anything you've done or looking to do, or?
I'm hoping to expand my skill set and learn how to write a memoir. I usually write short stories and make films, but yeah, there's something new.
Great. And I see we have a new last entry, Jenny. Jenny,
Hi.
Hi, you might not be aware. The question I asked to everyone else who was on was if they had started, or what the background they had in terms of writing a memoir.
Oh, I don't know much about it.
Good. So you're just along for the ride.
Yes.
Perfect. So writing a memoir, they always say that every person has one book in them because they have their own life story. And I think the hardest thing, at least that I found when I wrote it was a memoir. I never really felt like it was a memoir because when I wrote my own memoir, it felt more like I was trying to impart whatever insight I had learned throughout my life. So a memoir might have been more directed towards just, this happened when I was 5, and this happened when I was 3, and this happened when I was 2, and on. And even those details can be a little bit fuzzy. My recollection of what happened to me at 2 years old was different than my 2 brothers, which were 4 and 6. And that was the only thing that we had a disagreement around. They said that they never tried to poison me with whatever the chlorine was. They said I did that myself. And I said, yes, at 2, I imagine your 4 and 6-year-old recollections are better than mine at that time. So that was the only challenge, the only real problem I had, at least with my own family, regarding my memoir, which obviously brings up some of the challenges with writing the memoir, is that when I go into any writing journey, I often want to be fully free in my expression. And what I mean by that is, if I'm encumbered with, oh my God, I don't want to write about this because I don't want to hurt this person's feelings, or they're going to have a different recollection of what that experience was, then all of that fear and anxiety guides my writing. So in some ways, I have to make some peace that when I write, or when you write, I would also suggest, is that you allow yourself to be okay that no one might even read this. Because if you are thinking to yourself, I need to write in a way that people are comfortable reading it, you've already stopped yourself from fully expressing yourself. So it's almost like a prerequisite. And I won't even start to write about anything unless I go in myself to the deepest, darkest pain. And it's really it's a strange thing to say, and it may be, people would say, hey, what are you talking about? But for me, there is a healing in writing that's probably, in my case at least, is more important than the writing itself. Because what I think happens a lot of times when one endeavors to want something is like, I want to write a book. And then you get an idea in your mind of what a book is. And then you start thinking, okay, I've got to write the table of contents. And then I have to think about what's the progression and all these these limitations or these these things that impede your progress happen. So I'm now like writing my 4th book, and I can tell you, I only write when I feel like I'm about to cry. And if I'm not about to cry, it feels like it's not time to write yet. Because I know when I'm feeling that emotion, whatever I write is going to come from a place which is going to almost say transcend or go beyond just me. And so the reason why I spend time here is because it's like a state of mind. And I really want to like allow you to kind of feel what at least that state of mind might be for you. Because my state of mind is there. Your state of mind might be different. I can't say that, but I do want to like also like kind of point out like there'll be weeks, months, and even years I might not write because I'm not feeling that state of mind. And I know that if I try to force myself to write, that then all of a sudden I'm going to get stuck because I'm going to think, oh, I got to write this. But there's no connection to the words. And so that's why those connection is really important. That's why I wanted to sort of start there. I also see we have a new person who's joined, Catherine. Hello, Catherine.
Hi, how are you?
Very well. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you also.
I just began by asking everyone if anyone has tried to start writing a memoir, and now I'll ask you, have you tried to write a memoir about anything, including your cat, who appears to be very interested in everything but the camera?
Yeah, that's true, right? Well, I think I started probably maybe 12 years ago, just 2 pages.
Okay.
I am a poet and mostly that. Although I had been in a class with and I'm forgetting her name. Doesn't matter. Hild. She was supposed to be a very prominent person in writing.
Okay.
And I did that at the 92nd Street Y for a
Okay.
little while, and that's it. I mean, and now I'm doing this public speaking thing, and I have been asked to write a little bit about to speak a little bit of a story. So that's, I find that my experiences, they're so fast and they just come at me from different angles because life is fast. And when you have all these experiences, some of them magnificent and amazing, like I tap danced and I was at the International Women's Artist Salon and my painting is exhibited. And then coming home, I fell down with my Chinese soup, got a black eye. And like one thing, like I could write about another thing. It's just a lot of stuff. I don't know how to make it slow, condensed or whatever.
Well, I think I'd like to get to that as part of the progress. The one thing that, like I said when I was starting right now when you came in, was that I always start with like, how do everyone might use a different word for it. I call it centering myself. I call it grounding. I want like almost the words to pass through me. If I'm thinking too much, normally it's not going to be written well. And I often would use the word afterwards. I feel that writing is more channeling. Like it's more like I surrender to the words that are going to come through me. And I spend more time preparing myself emotionally to write than writing itself, because it turns into almost like, I'd call it like a sacred space. And there in that, there's that, I'm not a religious practicer of anything, but there's often more of like a Buddhist kind of tint to most of the way I live, which is just surrendering to what is, and the feeling of, if I want the outcome and I fight to get there, usually everything gets in my way of doing it. So when I'm writing, and if I really want to get somewhere, everything tends to get obstructed. It gets really hard, at least for me. Some other people say they need to write every day, and that's their practice, and that's the way they've honed their craft. So I also can't say that my way is the only way, but it's just the way that I found that it suits me. And I'm a bit ADHD, and I'm a bit jittery, and I can't even really read well. I can't sit, for like still, because in a way, somebody else's thoughts in my head, they have to be really engaging, or I get distracted. So in that way, I'm probably a good indicator of somebody who, of course I'm, what do you say, very energetic, but I've had to figure out, how do I channel my energy so that I could sit and write. So that's how I've done it. I've basically said, where am I feeling the most emotion come up? And then without thinking about what I want to say, I start to write. So I might take on one subject 2 or 3 times, because if I feel like I've written about something where I don't feel like I got the essence of what I wanted out, then I'll take the exact same subject and I'll write about it a second or a third time. Even though I've written it once, it's almost not important that I've written it. It's important that I've put it in a way which feels like it connects to the essence of what was the experience. So that's why I often find that people who want to write and get through the chapter, like, oh, I want to write this experience, and then if you say, I didn't write that the way I liked it, and then you're frustrated, that'll impede your ability to keep writing. So instead of framing it as, I wish I wrote it better, you hold it lightly and you say, well, okay, I can take that subject on, maybe not now, maybe I give it some space and I'll come back to it. So when I started going into my own memoir writing process, it was actually quite simple. I went and just like in kind of more meditation, found 30 moments in my life which were actually really, really important to me. And I did not say, 30 was an arbitrary number. I created that number out of nowhere. So I can't tell you there's a rule behind the 30, but I just said 30. And there was a reason in some ways, because I knew if I gave myself a big number that I'd continue searching. And some part of the writing process is just, what was there? What was there? What was there? And so before you write, my suggestion would be, out of context, no linear, no order, no age, no, would be to say, what are the, say, 20 to 30 things in my life which had such an important role that my life changed in some way, my life was touched in some way, it created or made who I am today. And what I've found is, if you have those 30, basically they become, and as I said again, out of order. And the reason why I say out of order is very specifically because if you start putting things in order, you're already trying to edit the book. And the best part of writing is avoiding editing the book to the longest time. So if you start trying to edit it too early, in my vernacular, I go into another part of my brain. There's a creative part of my brain. It's free-spirited. It doesn't mind if it makes mistakes. It's okay being vulnerable. It's playful. It's saying what it really feels, not concerned that maybe someone will read this and judge me. And as soon as I start going back to the same writing and reading it, like all of a sudden another part of my brain kicks in, the critical part. It's like, oh, I could state that better. Oh, that word wasn't as good. And as soon as I go to that part of my brain, I'm like, oh, damn it, I've lost my open free space. So I'll try to stay in this blue sky, very open area as long as I can. It's almost a discipline not to read my own writing, because if I start reading it, as I told you, I'm going to come up with 20 reasons to stop writing, because I'm going to say, hey, I've got to do it better, or I'm going to judge my writing, and so on and so forth. So that's the first kind of phase, the state of mind, as I mentioned, and then these 20 to 30 critical moments that you just write. And then some of the moments you might think, there's A moment and B moment. Like for me, there were in critical moments that if I go through my own, like I got to live in a lot of countries. So I also realized basically I've already got 6 or 7 moments because of the countries. So that was already 6 or 7 because of, I knew that my experiences in Japan or my experiences in Australia, those were both very unique experiences I knew I could write about. And then there was the time when my dad kicked me out of the house and said, you got 5 minutes or 30 minutes to get everything you own out and you're dead to me. And like that moment was pivotal in my life and having the experience. And then reconciliation with my dad was critical, because that was the time when basically all that pain was now given an opportunity to be healed. And how did that happen? I'm gonna let Gail come in. Gail, we see your audio isn't on per se, but we do see you and your lovely dog. So that's the experience. But I like to open it up for questions, because if it goes too much like a monologue, everyone's going to go to sleep. So yeah, what's going on for people, and what questions might people be having? Are we interested in anything I have to say? Are we going to go to sleep? That's another question.
No, it's really, really, really interesting, and is kind of going at it from a completely different angle from anything I've tried to write before. Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay. I've always tried to kind of play down the emotion in case I'm going to upset somebody. There's an admission, isn't it?
Yeah. Can you imagine?
And when you said about you don't start to write until you feel you're going to cry, I had that experience just before you said that, actually, when I was talking about writing about the cancer journey. I thought, if I write it from the point of view I'm going to cry, it's going to be a story I've never told before.
Because as soon as we're not in the state of that. When we say cry, what we're saying is it's such a deep level of vulnerability that you actually know that your words are going to be connected to a deeper source.
Yeah.
And in that source, what we connect to is we connect to the humanity in everybody. So in my own writing, like when I'm writing, I always feel like if I have to explain it, then actually I'm hiding my vulnerability, because my preference would be to show myself so much that another person can see themselves in my writing. That's my biggest dream. Not that someone would read my book and say, wow, this guy is really smart, or this guy's really insightful, but like, wow, I know the same experience as that person because I've had that myself. And I believe, and this again is my own journey, and I don't want to like say, hey, everyone has it, but my journey has been that if I'm in that intimate state in writing, that 9 times out of 10, the writing will resonate with other people who read it, and they'll be attracted to it. Because we might not think that our vulnerability and pain are something that are attractive or interesting. But I can tell you, everyone is dying to see other people reflecting their emotions in their writing or in their words, because people feel pretty damn lonely and they feel pretty unseen. And it's through the writing, and that, of course, a reader gets the opportunity to hear themselves in another person. And that just makes one, that tends to make one feel a little bit less lonely in this life. And that would be the essence of where I'd say, and your writing will become more and more interesting and attractive and appealing to the reader. That's been my experience, at least. And that's, again, with all the caveats I mentioned. I'm also not a big reader, which is kind of humorous. I like to write books, but I don't tend to like to read them. Yeah. So. Okay, and I still open it up for more questions or anything that is coming up for anybody, because I don't want this to be too one-sided a discussion.
I wanted to say, it's Catherine.
Yes.
When writing, I have the habit of always editing. I read and then I edit and I try to get the right word, the right poem, and they come out pretty nice. It's just that it's like having a baby. It really is like having a baby.
Yes.
But when dealing with heavy emotional experiences that one wants to write about, but yet not like sort of throw up about, I don't know how to explain it any better than that.
Yeah.
Because there's like a line, to me anyway, and I'm having trouble with that line, of just spilling out the pain and the gook, and also trying to do something in a way which is engaging, but yet and powerful, but yet bringing in the writing also some compassion for the person that perpetrated upon you. Like, yes, I did, this happened, and oh, bad, that's just awful.
Yes.
But, and he did this and blah, blah, blah. But also, when did it happen? The acceptance, or it's hard.
So you say it's hard, and I'd like for you to reframe it.
Okay.
So everything in the way you described it would be great writing if you'd be comfortable writing what you said to me. Do you get where I'm going with this, or no? So if you describe the process in your mind in your writing, then you'll find that writing gets very interesting very quickly. I give you an example. I'm going to write back to you what you just said to me.
Okay.
Okay. So I had this absolutely horrible experience. I'm not going to go. I can make stuff up, but if I'm right, then I'll cry. Yeah, I'll make you cry, and then it's like, oh, what's going on here? So let's just say I had this absolutely. Let's just say I'll take my own experience and then put it on you. So my dad threw me out of the house. He gave me 30 minutes. I sat crying at the door. I didn't know what to do, and I felt alone in the world. And as I write this, I realize that I feel all this anxiety come up because I don't want to make myself into being a victim. And although as an adult I can look back and see this, I still, as I write this, have all this trouble, because even though that pain was there, I have a hard time even today making peace with that pain. So all you've done is you've taken the experience as you're having the experience, and you're writing about that experience. And I think that's the challenge people face, is that you're trying to, and I'm assuming, and that's all good, you're trying to get the story right. And what I'm telling you is, and I'm going to use my normal language, fuck the story. The story is not, who cares the story? The story is what your experience of the story is at this very moment. And it'll change a week from now, it'll change a month from now, it'll change a month after that. So you get to fully live that experience. And if you can write about it as you're going through it, in that vulnerable state, even as your mind is tricking you and playing with you, and you can stay true to what's going on as you write, that is going to be what I told you, staying in the zone. And so every time you get stuck, you write about being stuck. Every time you say, oh, I feel myself judging the child at that time who could have done something different, you write it. You actually like allow it to become, as my wife says to me, Andy, you know, you don't really write books. You write journals and then you call them books. Like she just told me this last week. I didn't realize that. I was like, actually, I guess I do. But the whole thing is, if you give a overarching context of what the book is, it's your memoir, you can write your memoir and then you can write it in that fashion. And I can guarantee you it's far more interesting than if you said, this is what happened to me when I was 15. She said this and he said this. That's actually fine, but it's recalling an event and trying to write about it, as opposed to writing about the struggle that you experience, even recalling the event. That's interesting writing for me. And staying true to that process as it's happening in the moment. And then you feel your mind say, no, I can't write that. And you don't listen to that voice. You stay with the moment. You say, you even write, I'm getting distracted at this moment. You write that in the writing. I can feel myself not wanting to go there. You write about that and then you stay back in that text. And that's the kind of text that's riveting, because it's so authentic. A reader will know immediately that that's what goes on inside of them when they have these experiences. And as long as you're trying to sort of be present to the moment and stay in that moment and stay in it and stay in it, you will find that you're writing, as you're writing it, you'll say, this is shit. All I'm doing is I'm decompressing and throwing my thoughts on paper. And then in the end, you give it to somebody else and they're like, I can totally resonate with that because that's how I am. But you won't know you're doing it. So you're not trying to write to have somebody else enjoy your writing. You're writing to be so deeply connected to who you are at that moment that you're giving another person the opportunity to see themselves again reflected in your writing. It's a very different space to think about. You're not memorializing your life in terms of A, B, C, D, E, F, G. You're saying, this is the 30 experiences. Sometimes I'll take the 25th experience before I take the second. I write out of order. I don't want to write linearly, because then again, I'm not staying true to what feels right at this moment. This is the topic I want to talk about now, or write about now. So I saw Frank, you put your hand up. So I do want to make sure to go to you, because that would be the proper thing to do. Yes.
For memoir writing, can you incorporate elements of magic or like fantasy to it? So for example, when I was a kid, my older brother convinced me that magic was real. And then, but so basically I had a stuffed reindeer and I had a lucky pencil. And one day I apparently, quote unquote, lost my lucky pencil. So my brother told me to close my eyes and count to 60, and I did. And then my pencil appeared in the next to the stuffed reindeer. So he told me that it was magic, and yeah.
Frank, that sounds like an incredibly good story, and an important story that if you trust that that story is important and you write about it, like your book would be called Magic is Real. You know, that would be even the title of the book, because in a way what you're saying is that whatever that experience gave you has been important for what your life. And then you write about all the 5, 10, 15, 20 things that you see connected to that one experience and how that served you your entire life. So in writing the memoir, the hardest thing is getting stuck in traditional ways of thinking about it. It's like you have to write your table of contents. You have to start with the start. You have to flow to the next. Like that's the danger zone. And we're taught that way, and that seems the logic. But imagine if I write 30 and I have a really hard time writing the third chapter. I'm now stuck, you know, where I would rather say, I wake up in the morning, I feel like I want to write about the 25th thing, because that feels like it resonates with me today. Then you just write. I'll write for 2 hours in the morning. I'll usually try to get up early, and then it's when I'm fresh and I'm looking at the sunrise or whatever's inspiring me state in this environment, and then I'll just write. So that's the suggestion, is if that experience was important to you in that case, Frank, which it obviously was, then you write around that experience, and then you find 25 other experiences which also had a profound impact on your life, and then you write about those.
Yeah, thank you.
And you don't give them an order. You don't try to figure out how they connect, what's more important than another. I actually don't even know what the titles of my books are until like the last 2 or 3 chapters, usually. So I'll just write. I have a general theme in mind. And then afterwards I say, okay, this is what the book is supposed to be called. Because through the writing, I'll feel back again, like this is what's resonating right now. So that's again, a lot of,
Yeah.
Any other questions from anyone, or any statements, or?
Andy,
Yes.
this is Sybil. Can you put if you come up with all different stories in different orders, can you put them in a book in different order?
I mean, you possibly could. I wouldn't want to say what you could or couldn't do, but what I would want to say is first write them so that you get them on paper. Like that's the first goal, and try not to read what you've written, because once you read it, you'll start getting critical and you'll lose that like I'll often tell my wife, if I'm in the zone, I'm like, oh my God, if I'm in that zone, I'm looking to get 50 to 60,000 words out of my system. And I'm like, and it's almost like, it's like this beautiful little flower that's blooming. And I don't want it to, like, if I overwater it, like, so even like, I'm very generous. I'm like, oh, wow. And you're lucky you're getting that time again. What's going on? And now if I hold on to the time, I'm surely not going to get it a long time. So I just sort of try to make space for it. Okay, I got 2 hours in today. Oh, am I going to try to cheat another 2 hours? I might, but I'm like, if I try to cheat that other 2 hours, I might be I might be forcing myself to get to the goal again. And then all of a sudden I lose the kind of connected state. So it's really it's a dance inside of myself to stay in tune with, when am I ready to write? Right. And so that's a journey for each one to make. But the one thing that drives me crazy is like Catherine down there, because she's down at the bottom of my screen. Catherine, I see you as the poet reading your own writing, knowing how you can improve it, knowing that this word probably is better than that word if I want to make it poetically clear. And in this case, you actually have to say surrender to, maybe I'll never read my own writing. Maybe I'll get through this, write 50,000 words out of context, and it'll just be 50,000 words. And your mind will say, yeah, but I've got to order this, or I've got to think about this, or like, and you've got to stop every nasty voice in your head that stops that process, like every voice. And there will be tons of voices. And I've had every one of them play at me. No one's going to find this interesting. Everyone has had, there's other books like this before. People have done this, but they've done it much better than I have. My writing isn't actually that good. It's quite immature. I don't use big words. There's like, I don't know. I've had every criticism of my own work, but more so than anyone could criticize my work. But if I let any one of those voices in, I'm doomed. I'll never be able to let it out. Okay. Right. Your speaker's off, Catherine.
Who am I going to offend? Who? If that's in all those questions in my head. Who am I going to offend to no end? Yeah. And I wear a bracelet that says to be as kind as I can be in life. Okay, so I got a whole bunch of forces going back and forth in my head that are killing me.
I know. I know. And that's what I'm telling you. That's the child. That's the. So in a way, I got the luck, and I say this absurdly, I got the luck of having my memoir being able to be done after both my parents were dead. And I say luck, because I didn't have to wrestle with that in my own life. And I mean, it sounds weird to say it that way, of course, but what I do know is I had 2 older brothers, and I forgot, this might sound weird to you, I forgot that by outing my own life, that they also got like, oh yeah, if dad was abusive to you, hey, what about, but I was lucky enough that they were very loving and supportive to me. So I got very, very lucky there. But I do understand that if you tell stories about a parent and you've got a brother or sister who had different experiences with that parent, it will not be easy. But the thing is that I don't see, and this is again my assumption, I don't see good writing come out of not being vulnerable about even writing that, because that's what other people will have as an experience. So if you write as you write it, so if I'm writing, Catherine, your book, and I say, Dad did this and Dad did that, and as I'm writing, I feel all this anxiety come up inside of me, because I know that my family will say that my experience of the events was very different than others. And I do feel like every time we have experiences in life, it's hard because we want to accommodate others and we don't want them to feel bad. But this is a book I'm trying to write about my experience. Like if you write that, it's interesting. It's present, it's human, it's connected, it's everything that any reader would want to resonate with, because it's authentic. If you said, okay, how can I write this chapter so that I don't offend my 2 siblings? You're fucked. Because on some level, what you're going to do is you're going to self-edit everything before you've even written anything. So better doing is, in my own case, and this is how I would do it, I'd write every dirty situation in the experiences it was, and then maybe I wouldn't publish it. But the thing is I'd get it out authentically as it was a full expression of me, with all those detours. So you don't need to publish things you write, the more frightened you are to publish them, the better they're going to be. Like I can tell you, like the chapters that I did not want to put in the book of my books are always the chapters people say, I really love that chapter, and I'm like, and I was really wanting not, there's this one chapter in the last book that's called Fuck You and Your Fucking Judgment. And I didn't want to put that in. I mean, it was a strong, but I thought, you know what, if I put that in, people might judge me. People will see that I could have acted differently. I could have behaved. And I felt all the anxiety of people judging me in that thing. And I was like, oh, do I put it? And now like everyone, and they don't even read the chapter. They'll say something like, oh yeah, chapter 14. And I'm always like, what do you mean chapter 14? Because they don't want to repeat the chapter title, So the truth is the more risky it is, the more pure it is, the more it will resonate. That's it. In that level. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, this is Gail Bluebird.
Yes, we see you. And you're in my corner. You're in San Francisco in front of the Golden Gate Bridge, I say.
I know, I don't even understand. I don't understand Zoom. So it's good that my face is there, but I don't know how I got to be San Francisco, but anyway, it's probably just a setting. I'm really enjoying and feeling, what it is that you're saying. I'm writing a memoir, and I don't know if you've heard of people or if you've if you know of others that have written their memoirs in poetic form. And so I'm doing that. I also find what you're saying. I do a poem on Facebook just about every day. And I find that the hardest ones that I write are the ones that get the most response. I also use the technique that you talked about, which is getting up. When I get up at 5 in the morning, I'm most in touch. I'm most able to just put things down and not think about it. If I try to do it later in the day or the evening, it just doesn't work, because then I'm like forcing myself. But I also want to say that what's scary to me, and I'm going to do it, and no matter what, but I do have days when I think, oh no, I shouldn't really do this, is that a lot of my story is being a undisciplined, very, very sad child, but acting out and being somebody in school that usually people wouldn't have a reference for. I wetted my pants, for example, in first grade. But I relate this back to when I start my story is how my grandmother, I'm not saying this to connect it, but you'll get the connection later, is my mother telling me that I was put on the pot all the time by my grandmother. So I'm learning things about myself through the writing also. But what's difficult is feeling like nobody else will resonate with my story. And then I have to keep coming up with, well, but that's okay. That's okay. And that's why you're writing the story, because, you know, I'm not seeing other memoirs like it. Anyway, I just wanted to ask you if you have any response to writing the memoir in, and I know why I'm doing it, but in poetic form.
First of all, have you read my second book?
I haven't read any of your books, but I'm anxious to do that.
You don't have to. I just asked because there's one practice that's slavishly gone over in the second book. You say the thing you're most frightened of, and you follow it with, and it's fucking great.
Okay.
So you would say something to the nature of, I am writing a book which what was the fear that you had?
A fear of opening up a childhood that a lot of people would not resonate with.
Yeah. So I'm writing a book that no one will resonate with, and it's fucking great.
Okay. Well, I really like what you say, and I do resonate with what you're saying. But did you have any thought about the writing of memoir and poetry?
The one thing I find, just to speak to this and to a broader subject, like I mean, this might sound weird to say, but I don't find myself to be a very good writer, right? And I don't need to be a good writer. That was the one thing I gave myself as permission. I could cry a bit because it feels very like emotionally connected. It feels very loving to myself to say that. Like the gift I gave myself is I didn't need to be a good writer. And I think the challenge that I had in my own journey was that, it doesn't need to be good. It will just find people it resonates with. And that's fine. Like the humor was this arbitrary good or bad, or it's a eloquent, or I'm using 2-syllable words, like this idea that it has to be good is another construct that gets you stuck. So Gail, hopefully your writing is really shitty and it resonates with a lot of people. So in some way, you don't get to decide who it resonates with. I don't get to decide that. And in some cases, I'm shocked with who it resonates with. And I would have thought that it would resonate with somebody, and then it doesn't at all. And then there was a book editor, like one of the most beautiful experiences for me in my journey was that a book editor read my book, and it's not what a book editor is supposed to do, but they asked, can they contact me as the author to talk with me? And then this person ended up flying to Amsterdam, where I met them. And then, we had a moment where we connected because they read the writing and they had a strong experiences. And it was kind of one of the moments when my wife, who has always laughed at any of my writing, kind of saying it's like your expensive hobby, so she got to say, wow, actually, somebody who's actually somebody who reviews the books was touched to the degree that they did something that they hadn't done before to contact the authors. And so that was an important moment for me. But there would have been 50 other editors or reviewers who that book would not have resonated with. They would have just said, hey, this is just some guy writing about his life. What, who wants to hear that? Who cares about his life? But this woman, and I mean, I could cry sharing the story. She, wrote a letter, because the book was called The Last Letter, about writing a letter to the person you're struggling with. And she wrote a letter to her daughter, and then she shared how that experience was for her. She had never made peace with that relationship. And then she died 6 months later.
Wow. Uh-huh.
And that's the kind of, that's sort of that's the journey. You don't know the impact you'll have until you just do it and let the world decide what the impact is.
Can I say one other thing to
of course.
add? One of my biggest champions are what's the word? I can't come up with words. I have a memory problem now, and that makes it hard too. But at any rate, what I was trying to say is that I have a lot of grandchildren, and I have told many of my stories to my grandchildren, which probably wouldn't be told by most people. Most people would not tell some of those stories. The result of which is that one of my granddaughters just insists that I write my memoir and that she'll read it. She'll probably be one of my editors. She's already doing that. But it was kind of like scary sharing some of these stories. But instead of them looking down upon me, they felt like I do have a story and I need to tell it. So I value that. I really value that a lot.
Yeah, I'd like to take it a little bit further, is that there's a story that's there, period. How you decide to bring it out is your prerogative. But don't let fear guide it. And the one thing I saw, which was going back to like the impacts of my writing, is that I wrote about things that I didn't know how it would impact the people around me. And it was scary because obviously there were some cases I didn't think about it enough. And then I didn't realize, wow, actually, this has a deeper impact because people will read it. But the humor or the beauty of life is that when you share things about yourself, you give a chance for people to see you. And by doing that, again, you give a chance for them to see themselves. So when you think, I don't want to write that, actually, that's an egoic fear, which is maybe warranted in some case if there's something you want to protect. I can't say categorically that it's not necessarily the best place to be, but I'd say to you that if you really, really want the grandkids or the kids to kind of feel who and what you're all about, so that they can understand how they've become who they've become through their parents, you give them that gift by being ultra vulnerable.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate your comment.
Yeah.
And I also, before we hang up or whatever, I'm sure there's a way that we can find out about your books. I'd be curious about that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm going to sign off.
That's great.
Hi,
Please,
Auntie. Oh,
Catherine. Yeah.
yeah. I wanted to say, I as you speak, as everyone's speaking, my brain goes into psychology, not writing anymore. Now I'm going into psychology, and I'm starting to say, my brother who is an alcoholic.
Yeah.
Okay, so he has a whole. I tried to tell him this the other day, and he said, "Oh, I don't agree." That everybody has their own truth, and I have my feelings too. He has his feelings. I have my feelings.
Yes.
But yet I love him, and I don't want to. You're right, and thank you. It doesn't have to be published. It just has to be spoken or out there. That's good. That's a permission for me. So that seems to be some kind of conflict in me, in that my truth, as I write it, yeah, but if I really want a relationship with him, to talk with him, or is like, and I know I can't get to him and change his thoughts about me and how bad I am. And
Sure.
so opposite to what my story, opposite to my story is his story.
Yeah, of course.
It's confusing to be universal and
So
I'm touched.
this is the hardest challenge probably one has in writing, is that we all know we have a version of events, and it is not easy to share our version of events knowing that others will have a different version of events. Now, the humanity, and this is why it took me my time to write my own sort of memoir, was because I needed to be able to make peace with my version of events is also limited. I don't hold truth. Because if I held truth, I could not write. Because I know if I write today, tomorrow, or the next day, it's going to be different. So what I write is just an expression of who I was or am at that moment. That's it. And that expression very well might have emotional implications for people around me. Now, that's a choice that each one of us gets to make. How far are we going to allow ourselves to take that risk? That's just a choice we get to make. I can't tell you, and nor would I want to tell you, hey, publish it, offend your brother, and deal with the implications of that. Like, I wouldn't do it, but what I wouldn't say that. But what I would say is, like, it's one of those journeys everyone gets to take in life. What is my fullest expression? And it took me to get to 50 to say, this is my fullest expression. And my fullest expression was, for me, talking about going to prostitutes in my 30s, you know, like that was the scary thing, because I know everyone in my life is going to read this. I know that everyone has, everyone from my mom was the oldest of 12 kids. And I know that and they're from the Catholic middle of America. So I know, okay, like that's me saying, fuck it. It's not comfortable. It's not easy, but I'm not going to write it in a way which amplifies the experience. I'm going to write about it in a way that humanizes the experience, that creates an understanding of who I am and who I was at that time. I'm going to make myself see that you can judge me, but you can't not see me, because my writing will give you the chance to see me. That doesn't mean you will, but I'm giving you a chance to see me because I'm going to be vulnerable. If in your writing, Catherine, you were to say, my brother's an asshole, he's an alcoholic drunk who da-da-da-da-da, then I guarantee you the writing won't resonate with people, first of all, and you'll probably make a lot of enemies with your brother. But if you were to say, I've always struggled in my relationship with my brother. We've argued about how alcohol consumption has gotten in the way of our relationship, and we both have differing opinions on what it means to be an alcoholic. and then right from there, then you don't have to state things as the fact. You get to state them as the experience and the struggle you're having, which is what's far more interesting than the story. That's the dance.
Thanks. Thank you, Queen.
Pleasure. Jenny we have a hand up.
Yes, I'm really enjoying listening to everyone's perspectives about memoirs. I think my problem is, even though I did major in writing and art, I don't feel very strong about my writing. I even wrote for City Voices a few years ago, but I feel like my mind is much simpler now, especially with all the medication I've been on. But I have to admit, I feel like I'm not a good writer.
So can we agree, Jenny, that you're not a good writer? And who cares? Who cares? Because I'm not a good writer, and I'll sell a few thousand copies of my book. No, I can't understand how, if someone could read Krishnamurti or something, then they're reading my book, like, hey, but apparently the voice resonates with people. And I guarantee you your voice resonates with people. If you just write what you just said to me, which is as vulnerable as it comes, it will resonate with people.
Mm-hmm. Thank
And
you.
that's the journey. The journey is, how vulnerable can I be so that other people have the chance to see me? That's the journey. See themselves, by the way, not me, because that's the illusion. The illusion is that I live in this, like we talked about with Catherine, this reality that I experience. No, there is an experience we're all having, and half the time we're talking about bullshit when all the emotional depth is lost, and now we give them a chance to experience the emotional depth with me, and I don't even need to talk to them. They can read this on their own, and then they'll understand and see me. Meg, who's on the call, we had very short interactions, and we met last week in Spain, where I was, and we were immediately like friends that had existed for friends for ages, because there was a vulnerability she experienced and saw in my own, in the way how I was presenting and showing up and writing, that all of a sudden she was interacting me with ways that made me feel weirdly like, how does she know this is the way to interact with me without guard, completely comfortable, saying whatever is on your mind, just that feeling of like we can be that vulnerable with no pretense, and that came in some part to how I was writing and showing up and presenting. And that's how you have a chance to support others and to get them interested in your writing as well. And that would be that. Okay. I do like the more interactive part of our talk. So of course, if you guys have questions, I'm far more interested in interacting than having a one-sided discussion, but I can do that as well. So I also want to share with everybody, I know that I introduced this Chat GPT to Meg. Have any of you been using Chat GPT? Okay. I look at Catherine with an air of disgust in her face. I like that.
I said I didn't know what it is.
Okay. Chat GPT is for me a tool to cheat. And I don't mind cheating, just to get that clear. So I'm going to actually show us, if it's okay, I'm just going to cheat with you for a bit. Is that okay with everybody?
It's GTP, like G.
I'm going to go on the site right now, and I'm going to just let me go on the site. Okay, so I'm going to go, hold on, let me share my screen. Share. Okay, so here we are. Can everyone see the screen?
Well, it's very small
Oh,
on
is
my
it?
phone. On my phone, it's very small. But,
okay. Well, here's
okay.
what we're gonna do. Is I'm just gonna take and give you an example of what. Any question? Okay, sorry. So what I'm going to do is ChatGPT is this tool that now exists, artificial intelligence, who will take with limited input, it will write on your behalf. And it'll write pretty damn well, to the point it's a bit scary. So, so what I would like to do is I would like to just give you some examples of how you might use this tool in your own memoir writing. So to start that process, I'll need a victim. Jenny might be Jenny who you mentioned earlier that you were a little bit conscious. It might be fun to pick on you for a little bit if you're open to it.
Oh, I don't know. What do you mean?
Oh, what I mean is I'm going to ask you questions, and we're going to put those into the ChatGPT and let it write the book for you.
Oh.
Is that okay?
You'll be blown away. You'll be blown away, Jenny.
Oh, okay. I guess we could try it.
Well, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I thought we can do it or not. I can find someone else as well. So just let me know if that's something you'd be excited to do, or you're like, Andy, just find somebody else. I'm cool with either way.
Maybe somebody else. I'm
okay,
a little
good.
nervous.
I leave it. Yeah. Thank you. I don't want to exactly. So who would be the person who I'd say, okay, I'm just going to take you, and we're going to make a memoir on the fly on the call as we're doing this.
I want to do it.
Okay, Catherine, you're the victim.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Okay, so my name is Catherine
Okay.
Fazio. Give me a sec.
Yeah.
And I would like you, I'm just saying like you, yeah, to write a memoir. Is that the right? See, I don't even know how to spell the word. See? Okay. I'll figure that out later. Of
It's just
my
IOR.
life. Sorry, what'd you say?
It's just IOR instead of the
IOR.
memoir.
Memoir. Okay, got it. Okay.
IOR. It's okay.
Memoir. See that?
Yeah.
I'm a bit dyslexic as well.
It's okay.
Not only do so now we go on. So when were you born?
1954.
I was born in where were you born?
Brooklyn, New York.
In Brooklyn, New York. Okay. What was notable about that, if anything?
It had Coney Island, and my mom and dad used to go there all the time.
It was near to Coney Island.
Yeah, where my mom and dad.
Would they go with you?
Actually, they did go with me, and I was in the newspaper, the Daily News, drinking my milk. Sorry.
What are you talking about? That's exactly the details we want.
Yeah.
So what was it called? The Daily News?
It was the Daily News. Yeah, they took a picture
Daily
of
News.
guzzling milk.
Okay, so these are the details we want to put into this system, okay? I now want to ask, so what would be things for you that were like big moments in life?
I noticed people drank a lot in my life, in my family.
For my entire life, I
Yeah.
noticed that people drank a lot in my family.
Yeah. I worried about my father coming home from the oil truck that he worked on, swaying and in danger.
Okay, so now I'm writing all these details, right? I can continue asking some questions. What was your earliest memory?
My father held me in his hands while I touched the ceiling.
Okay. What would you say was the core wound that you had to deal with in your life?
I watched my father throw the table upside down and make my brother eat the peas off the floor.
So thank you for asking. Thank you for answering, and excuse my callousness with asking with such disconnectedness, because I'm just trying to write here and not connect with you and make sure that you. So, but this is where the writing goes. So so this is a very short piece. I could ask you 10 more questions, right?
Right.
So what I'm going to do is just take what we've done, which you saw was me asking you random questions and just putting them in the system. And now I'm going to ask the system to create a book. Yeah. Okay. Basically create a story from this in the nicest text it can create. And you'll see with very little work or effort, the system is already taking everything what I put in and making it into something which is more readable, more easier to, it's grammatically correct in most cases. And so look at how much text we're now creating with what you just gave me, with literally 4 questions.
It's amazing, really.
So as Catherine Franco was born in 1954 in Brooklyn, New York, she began her journey in a bustling city full of life and excitement. She was fortunate enough to live near the famous Coney Island, where she would often visit with her parents. One of her earliest memories was being featured in the Daily News guzzling milk as a toddler. Growing up, Catherine noticed that drinking was prevalent in her family, particularly with her father. She often worried about his safety when he came home from work on the oil truck, swaying and unsteady on his feet. Despite this, she cherished the moments when he would hold her in his hands and lift her up to touch the ceiling. However, not all of Catherine's childhood memories were happy ones. One core wound that she had to deal with was the traumatic incident of her father throwing a table on the ground and forcing her brother to eat peas off the floor. The experience left a deep impact on her and affected her relationship with her father and brother for years to come. As Catherine grew older, she pursued her education and eventually began her career. She faced many challenges along the way, but her resilience and determination helped her overcome them. Despite the difficulties she faced in her personal life, Catherine remained focused on achieving her goals. Looking back on her life, Catherine acknowledges the ups and downs she experienced. She's grateful for the moments of joy and happiness, but also recognized the importance of facing and healing from past traumas. Through it all, she has learned to appreciate the strength and resilience that she possesses and hopes to pass those qualities on to future generations.
Wow. Amazing. It's
Yeah.
amazing. Right.
So this was very limited input, right? So imagine if you created and I could say, for instance, on this, I'd say, take the text above
Yeah.
and write it longer. I can do the same thing. I could say, make this text more engaging, make it more friendly, make it more, whatever I wanted to say. Yeah. I could continually add more parameters. Of course, we'd want to have your actual life story in there, but what you're seeing is that you can really take your story, give it a framework. So take your 30 experiences that I mentioned,
Yeah.
write them in generalities, like this happened with this and this, and you can just ask this system to engage and write it and do it in a way that'll actually do a lot of the work for you.
It's amazing. I mean, I would not have ever guessed. That's amazing.
And you can see that this chapter we just added, I don't know, maybe we didn't, but it looks like there's a little bit more text. So now let's do something else, Catherine.
Yeah.
You like to write it in poetry, right?
It's poetry. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
what
So let's
I mean.
let's ask the system to write the above in poetry.
Yeah.
Oh,
Wow. You're kidding me. Right?
So it's right. It
Listen.
looks like it's writing it as a what do you call it? The
Quatrains. What?
no, there's a term used when you write only a certain number of words in a phrase. What's that type of poetry called?
Certain number in the phrase.
Five
stanza.
in stanzas. Yes.
Yeah.
So here it takes the same text we wrote, but it writes it in stanzas for you as poetry.
What? And born in
1954, Catherine Frazio, A Life to Explore. Near Coney Island with parents by her side, the joy of childhood she couldn't hide. Famous for guzzling milk as a toddler, even in the news they couldn't help but holler. But her childhood wasn't always fun and play. She watched her father drink his life away. Working on the oil truck, he'd come home unsteady, and Catherine would worry her father was not ready. But in his arms, he lifted her high. Touching the ceiling, she felt like she could fly. In her memory, a painful wound, a table thrown, and her brother was doomed to eat peas off the floor, a cruel demand, a memory that would forever stand. But Catherine was resilient, with strength to spare, determined to succeed. She'd go anywhere. She pursued her education and began her career. Challenges she faced, but never did she fear. Looking back, she sees life ups and downs, grateful for joy and all of its frowns. Through the struggles, she found the way to overcome life's challenges day by day. Catherine Frazio, an inspiration to all, her resilience and strength, a guiding call. to face life's difficulties with grace and might, and to inspire others to keep up the fight.
It's amazing. That's
So-
amazing.
So this is basically what's available to you for free. And you can go there and you can automatically start putting in the text of your life, the actions, the activities, the things, giving them details, and let the system do all the work for you. I know it's cheating. And I know
It's
that
not
some
really.
probably hate me for even showing this, but it feels, if this is available, it doesn't feel like it shouldn't also be able to be utilized, right?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Wow. Amazing. It's just, and it flows so nicely.
Catherine, if you send me your email, I'll send you all this text.
Oh, thanks, son. I will. But how will I know your email?
You can text it me in the if you're comfortable putting it in the chat
In
here.
the chat? Do something. I put my email in the chat. Is that what I do?
Yeah, just put your email in the chat and then I'll know it, and then I'll just do this
Okay.
quickly, otherwise I might forget. Life is a bit busy for me at the moment, so.
Uh-huh. That's
Okay, it's here now. Okay, going back.
okay.
So the text is there. So basically, this is again an opportunity that's available to everybody to take, like I said, the technology that exists and use it to write a memoir. And you can do that in all, you know, and even if you wanted to do, you could even do some strange things like, you know, I would say, let's say I don't even know where to begin. I could say, write the chapter titles for a memoir. So I'm going to just say, write the chapter title. So what this will do is this might say, okay, I don't even know where to begin. So now it's going to say, give me, for instance, just per chapter titles based on the text I put in. Beginning in Brooklyn, Coney Island Adventures, Drinking in the Family, Touching the Ceiling, Trauma. So these are obviously not single stories or chapters possibly, but they may be, and that would be how you would also be able to get chapter titles potentially, if you put more text in, obviously.
This is Gail, and I wanted to, or Bluebird, I should say. I noticed in the poetry that they used a rhyming poetic form.
Yes.
And many of us write in, free verse, kind of, and not try to rhyme. In fact, try not to rhyme. So I was just wondering, would if you were to ask them to put it in poetry form, would it?
I'll write it right now. Free verse.
Oh, I see. So they can do that too, huh?
Well, we'll see. The thing has done some pretty crazy things for me. So
Unbelievable.
So I don't know if this is free verse or not, because I'm not as well wrote in poetry of free verse. But born Brooklyn, 1954. Catherine Frasio's story began in a city full of life and noise, and a family with a unique plan. Near Coney Island, she spent her youth laughing and playing with her mom and dad, guzzling milk and gaining fame and making memories that made her glad. But there was another side to her story, a family consumed by alcohol and strife. Her father would come home unsteady, and Catherine would worry, her heart not ready. Yet in his arms, he held her tight. So there is rhyme in this, lifting her up to touch the ceiling in sight, a moment of pure joy and elevation, a feeling of flying and liberation. So yeah, it is still following rhyme. Write the following without rhyme, I would say. Okay, so write the above without rhyme. Rhyme with
RH.
How do you spell rhyme?
RHYME.
So yeah, it'll come up with different versions as you write it and ask it to write it differently.
Unbelievable anyway.
Yeah. I mean, what I'd also do, because I spent some time trying to write a libretto. We could also have this written as an opera, for instance.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. That's funny. Ay,
Let's see what it comes up with
ay,
here.
ay,
So
ay.
now we have Catherine's life in this short form written as a libretto so that we can do a opera. It's taking a little bit more time to process this question. But I guess what the whole point is I wanted to show this at the end, because what I do feel is that if you get your 20 or 30 chapters and you feel like you can write around that, like just generalities, like what came up for you, like what I think what you'll find is that there's a lot that can be done even with these tools that exist. Now, it may not be as romantic, it may not be as connected as I like to have my writing to be, but there's also, you need to start somewhere, and this isn't a bad place to start. Yeah. We also
yes. Do a lot of people use this? I never heard of it.
Me neither.
And I like the fact that you call that it's called cheat, because it is it's a cheat, but I would wonder, I think you're telling us how people use it or how we could use it, but I'm not quite getting it.
Yeah, well, I mean, the getting it is like this, is I find that writing is a form of expression, which for me is a grounding, connected, almost a transpersonal kind of experience. So I would probably not write anything in this, but I actually just wrote one book in a night because I wanted to see how far I could take this. And the book wasn't bad. It was actually a reasonably good book, but it was a night. It took me to write a whole book. So it's incredible what it can do. The question is, like, do you want to do it? And I wouldn't want to not show this to you and say, hey, struggle, and this probably can do 90% of the work that you do if you'd want to access and use it. So this is it's a choice you make. And I would say, Andy, if I'm you, Gail, I would say, Andy, why the hell would I want to use that? It takes the joy out of the process, which is why you do it anyways. And I would agree with you, right? But that's that's for each person gets to decide their own journey. That's the.
Well, I have one other question related.
Please.
Yeah, I mean, you just said what I would think, but also, like, just say somebody does use this to write a book. Do they give this credit? How do they?
You know what? I'll stop the share and I'll have this. Gail, we're going into uncharted territory.
Okay.
I just spent time at a university, a high school, and another place like about a week ago. And I can ask this system any question and it can give it to me to answer the questions for all the students. So students don't need to go to school anymore. They can type it into this thing and it'll answer the question. And the only thing the teachers can do is the teachers can run a scanner to say, oh, did this come out of the system? So there are some mechanisms, but there's also mechanisms say, take the text from ChatGPT and make it so that a scanner can't recognize it. So this technology this has all happened in the last month and a half. And and it's going so fast that no one knows how to manage or control what's going on right now.
Wow. I mean, I don't know. That's just so amazing.
Yeah.
That's yeah. What do you say? It's an extreme form of what's the word of technology. Technology in the extreme.
Yes, there's technology that transforms how we experience the world and what we see, and this is one of those technologies. It happened for me. Last time it happened to me was when I touched an iPhone, and this is the same experience.
Yes, I see.
It's like, oh, this changes everything. That's the feeling. This changes everything. So I'm one to, I see tools and I see them as serving a function for some people and not for others. And therefore, I would say if it gravitates to you, like I was with Meg last week, and we were having dinner and we were chit-chatting, and then I said, Meg is an incredible artist. She has incredible work. It's emotionally as powerful as you can imagine, to elicit deep feelings of seeing yourself, especially in the pain. And I said, well, let's write the marketing text for your exhibition. And then she's like, she'd never seen the technology, so she's looking at me like, what the hell are you talking about? But I typed on my phone about 5 or 6 sentences, and then it gave me a text that I would have written in a few days of contemplating, but it was fantastic, and it gave her what she needed to go and take her next step with her exhibition. So, it's a balance. How much do I want to like struggle when I can give the system and let the system tell me what it's meant to be?
Oh,
Well, I think you just gave one reason why you might want to use it, which is like a little bio or
Exactly.
Yeah.
Can I just say something? Can you hear me?
Yes, I will hear you.
Oh, I just wanted to share with everybody, but sort of what you typed in for me, what came out was the kind of essence behind what I'm trying to do with my paintings, because I don't know what I'm trying to do. It comes through me, but this app sort of put it into words in a way that I couldn't, and I was blown away. I was almost crying, actually, because it is so impossible to put into words the depth of the feeling that just comes into these images. So I think it has all sorts of really fascinating possibilities across the board now, and I didn't realize it was just sort of as new as like in a month it's just been in the world. I think it's very interesting.
Yeah.
And yeah, thank you, Andy. That was an unforgettable moment. That was an unforgettable moment in my life, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, thank you. So yeah, that's it. Oh yes, I see Catherine's still looking. I like Catherine. I like your face, because your face kind of always reveals something. Like there's an emotion going on, or some expression, or something's going on in that brain. That noodle is active.
I used to be called a weather vane. I
Yeah.
was called a weather vane when I was growing up by my teachers.
Yes.
Like I was a weather vane. But I was trying to figure out who owns this app, or who developed.
The app is, we're in a new range of technology where the technology, we don't even understand how the technology is working. We just know it is. So it's also a bit scary, because yes, the app is coming up with some sort of algorithm that it's making on its own. There's no one programming this thing. On the same, there's this intelligence that's embedded into the system, which people can't say, well, I know how it did that. So this is the quantum computing realm of, like, the system has an intelligence that we don't even understand now. So that's where we are. Yeah.
Artificial intelligence.
Yeah. And of course, with everything good comes the bad side. We don't know what the bad is yet. We do know what the challenges are, though. That's for sure. Challenges are, how do we deal with the education system that was built on the Victorian era, when the technology is so far beyond whatever that was, that now we're wondering, why does it make sense to educate children the way we used to, right? That's where we are now. Imagine educating a child and not having them use the technology. It would be like, we want you to use technology that was from the 1830s, but when you leave, you're going to have to be able to use technology the technology is so far beyond what's being taught at the moment, right? And so it'll be a challenge to figure out how we navigate this period in history. Yeah, it just will be. So we're coming up on an hour and a half, which I think was our time, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct? Is there any last questions or any things that came up? Jenny, I saw that you were unmuted, so it'd be nice to hear from you.
I learned a lot. I actually took notes.
That's
Um,
great.
One thing I wrote down was I'm not a good reader either. I'm more of a writer.
That's great.
Also, I'm an artist, just so you know.
Yeah. And that's
I've
it.
been. Mhm.
And what else? So when you say what were the things that came up for you that you say you learned, Jenny?
Let's review. Writing. One thing is writing when you're in the moment and you're really feeling it, so then you express yourself.
Yeah. It's great.
And you don't have to be a good writer to put your point across.
In fact, I think the worse you are, probably the better you you communicate. So let's take it and even reverse it a little bit and say being a shitty writer is actually probably more appealing for people to read. I'm looking at Catherine's face. It's the best looking. Whenever I say anything, looking at Catherine's face is like, I feel like I'm having a whole story, a whole conversation in my head. Sorry.
Gee, that's really a big compliment. You know, everyone's complex and everybody has stories. And, you know, I used to teach the blind and visually impaired. So they had this eyeglass thing on, oh, you'd go in the store and it would tell you exactly where things were or whatever. And the technology, and I said soul, like fish, the soul. Could it tell you where the soul is? S-O-U-L. It could tell you where the soul is. But I'm trying to say to myself, okay, I guess I'm always trying to make sense of things. Verizon has an app. It deals with Verizon. You know, Home Goods has an app. Someone takes responsibility for it. That's why I said, who has the app? You know, was it coming from this Chinese balloon over our head?
Oh, no. I mean, there's a technology company that does AI, and at some point they're going to charge money, and I think they're already charged. Someone's going to make some money at some point. Let's agree on that, Catherine. There's no one in life that does anything for free unless they want to get something in the end. So yeah, so it will evolve. There will be and there's competitors coming out, and each competitor has something special. So everyone is doing a unique version. Some do better writing, some do better answering questions, and
I understand now.
it's all it's a new emerging market, and it's coming fast, and it's confusing the hell out of a lot of people.
I understand now. Thank you.
Yeah, and do know that without a doubt, the competition and the people trying to, there will be someone taking the data, and every time someone puts in a new question, they're adding to the database and into all of the so it's never going to end. I mean, I did a search once on myself because I was like, oh, does it have something on me? And it gave me my whole life history with details that were totally not true. So it told me like a very good story. It was so good that you would have thought that it was real, but it was just factually incorrect. So I was just looking at like, it's also a little bit scary because what it's doing is it's aggregating all the data it can put up, and then it pops out an answer. But the answer, it's trying to be intelligent, but it's, you know, I was the head of coaches in New York City, and like I'm like, I've never, you know, been in New York City to doing it, you know, any real work, or never, certainly not coaching. And so it'll create fictitious stuff. But in your memoir, you'll give it the data input and say, please write this into a story that's compelling. That's what you can write. Please write it. You know, I had a teacher last week. I did a course on motivation, and the teacher said, "Oh, I gave them an exercise they couldn't use ChatGPT to cheat on." And I said, "I don't believe it. What was it?" And she says, I asked them to give me examples in their family of situations where they learned from their parents when it was their relationship with motivation. And then I went in and I ChatGPT and I said, ChatGPT, create stories of my family, give detailed examples, give dialogue from the parents. So it created the whole thing, you know, and she just wanted to hit me at the end. So the thing is you can take the system wherever you want. You can abuse it like most things in the world. But if you abuse it, you also don't get the benefit of what you could have learned, which is what the thing you really want is, right? I mean, if we look at life as a journey, like hopefully the way we get there is more important than the outcome. This is helping us get to the outcome. Just let us get to the outcome. But the way of getting there is really the thing that makes life worth living. That's why we write. We don't write to finish the book. We write to really, well, at least in my case, to experience what it is to be alive, and then to allow other people to share in that experience with me, and hopefully with you in your own writing. Yeah. And ChatGPT is a cheat for people who don't want that experience. Yeah. That's it. So we've gone our hour and a half together. We've even written a memoir within an hour and a half, which is pretty incredible. I bet you if we said that everyone would be able to write a memoir at the end of this, I would have everyone open a ChatGPT and like ask questions and then let everybody write at the same time. That would have been its own experience, but that wouldn't necessarily have been as fulfilling, at least not for me. So I leave you guys to your experience of this memoir. Is there any last questions or anything you have coming up where you'd like to share before we close our session? Don't need to. I'm going to take the email that Catherine sent. I just want to make sure before we leave that I've got it. So then, and I'll send you everything, including the opera version of your life. Okay.
I want to thank you so much. I mean, what a big help. It just feels like, when you feel like you have, through trauma or whatever, and you want to write, you feel like you have a gun against your head. It's like, what do I write and how do I write this thing, to be honest? And giving permission to people not to spell right, or it doesn't have to be, or fuck the story. You are amazing. I'm so grateful that Dan, thank you, Dan. Thank you, everybody here. Appreciate it, really.
I agree.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Yeah. Well,
Thank
grateful,
you.
Thank you.
grateful.
And I'd like to thank Andy and Catherine for using profanity, so we can't have this child-friendly video. Yeah, so we're excluding all the children, unfortunately. But thank you, Andy and Catherine.
Yeah, in my mess of a house, barely comb my hair coming onto the show. Yeah, I really want this in the public domain. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you.
All right,
everyone.
well, I guess he's waving goodbye, so goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye,
Thank you.
everybody.
Everybody.
Thank you so
Bye.
much.